In 1992, I wrote Criminal at the Presidency. It was not of exaggeration, or it was not out of exaggeration or rhetorical flourish. It was a statement of fact, one anchored in the blood, the ashes, and the torn lives of Cameroonians who had dared believe in democracy. Paul Biya had rigged an election, ordered state thugs to brutalize opponents, killed citizens, burned property and imprisoned dissenters to hold on to power. At that time, that is 1992, some said calling him a criminal was too strong a word. However, 23 years later, and now 43 years into his suffocating rule, criminal at the presidency is an understatement. What do you call a man who steals the will of a nation decade after decade? What do you call a ruler who weaponizes the military, the police, and the gendarmerie against his own people, slaughtering them, torturing them, abducting and disappearing citizens as a method of governance? What do you call a leader under whose authority journalists disappear, pastors are beaten to death, activists are chained, ladies and gentlemen, to hospital beds, and political challengers die in custody? There is only one word for such a man: criminal. And that is the character that has ruled Cameroon for 43 years. A criminal is not merely one who has been convicted by a court. A criminal is also one who commits acts of felony, whether or not the legal system has the courage or independence to name him. By every moral, legal, and human standard, Paul Biya of Cameroon matches the definition of a criminal. And Cameroon, for decades now, has been effectively run by a criminal cartel, with Paul Biya as the godfather at the top. This is the legacy of his stolen mandates. From 1992 to 1997, 2004, 2011, from 2018 read elections of October last year, every one of Biya's so-called victories has been built on the same architecture, that of intimidation, manipulation, bribery, ballot stuffing, military deployment, and the psychological terror of a state determined to crush dissent. Each election cycle in Cameroon has come with predictable violence: homes burned, voters beaten, opposition offices ransacked, and hopeful citizens turned into prisoners or corpses simply for demanding transparency. Cameroon does not hold elections, it survives them. And this time, Paul Biya emerges again, soaked not in legitimacy but in the blood of those who dare dream of a different future. To understand Biya's criminality, ladies and gentlemen, one need not rely on theories. The evidence lies in the graves, the mass graves, the mortuaries, the unmarked burial sites, and the silenced hearts of Cameroonians and Southern Cameroonians whose only crime was truth. Samuel Wazizi was taken into custody in 2019. A journalist, a presenter working for a private broadcaster in Boya, covering sensitive issues, including government handling of the Amazonian conflict. Samuel Wazizi was arrested following critical remarks about government policy, about Paul Biya's government policy. 5 days later, he was transferred from a police station in Boya to a military facility, the 21st Motorized Infantry Battalion in Yaoundé, and held incommunicado. No contact with his family, nor with his lawyers. Then, on June 5, 2020, the authorities publicly confirmed he had died in custody. Shortly after his transfer to Yaoundé in a military hospital. Official statement, a military one, claimed he died of severe sepsis. Human rights groups, Reporters Without Borders, and his family dispute this. They know he was held incommunicado for months. No independent autopsy was confirmed, and the photographs shortly after his transfer reportedly show signs of physical injuries, that is, torture, leading to suspicions of suspicious cause of his death. The government claimed he was being questioned. He never came out live. He was tortured to death under mysterious circumstances. His body hidden. His family left without answers. His only weapon was a microphone. His only threat was honesty. Under a criminal regime, the Biya's type, that alone was fatal. How about the case of BB Ngota, the reporter who exposed corruption? BB Ngota was editor-in-chief of the privately owned Cameroon Express newspaper, an active journalist for about 15 years. He was arrested in early February 2010 along with 3 other journalists on charges of falsifying a government document tied to Laurent Esso for alleged corruption. After a brief release, he was rearrested and held at Kondenge Central Prison. He died on April 22, 2010 in his cell. The official death certificate cited lack of medical attention, failure to render assistance while in prison. But how about Rodrigo Ngagu Kufet, the activist who insisted on truth? Rodrigo died in custody in 2022. His crime? Being an activist. His death was shrouded in the usual opacity. No investigation, no accountability, no remorse. Cameroon buried him secretly and quietly too, hoping the world would not notice. But the silence around his death remains an indictment. Now, how about Tangem Thomas, the pastor chained to a hospital bed? Here is a story that should haunt every Cameroonian. Pastor Tangem Thomas was arrested during the so-called Anglophone crisis in your terminology. The torture he endured left him terribly injured. When he was finally taken to hospital, he was chained. He was chained to his bed like a dangerous animal. He was starved, then weakened and humiliated. He died there, shackled, in chain, ladies and gentlemen, under the watch of the state that called itself his government. What kind of leadership chains a dying pastor to a hospital bed? A criminal leadership, of course. And now comes Anicet Ekane, the latest victim. Anicet Ekane, as you all know, he was detained, brutalized, suffocated, murdered in custody. His death, like all the others, is explained away with Rahil's lies. But the truth is unmistakable. Cameroon is now a country where death in detention is not an accident, but a policy. The question is, who is next? The French philosopher Montesquieu taught that the government exists only through the legitimacy granted by its people. A government that ceases to represent them, a government that turns against the people, forfeits its right to rule. When such a government becomes predatory, when it devours its own citizens, the people not only have the right to rebel, they have the obligation. Cameroon crossed that threshold years ago. This is no longer a government. It is a cartel, a criminal one, a criminal enterprise masquerading as a state. Its purpose is not national development, but self-preservation. It does not defend the people. It defends itself against the people. And Cameroonians must confront an uncomfortable question. And the question is, why has this continued for 43 years? Why has it continued for 43 years? Whatever you Cameroonians learn from Ambazonians, did you learn anything? Are Cameroonians this weak? Biya is not immortal. He is not invincible. He is not even competent. Yet he has ruled for 4 decades because the people he tyrannizes have been conditioned to fear their own liberation. Each year that passes makes the chains feel normal, the abuse tolerable, the violence expected. Is this what the children of Reuben Iyobe and Felix Momi have become? It is such pitiful. A nation of 20 million held hostage by one man and a handful of corrupt loyalists. Are Cameroonians truly powerless? Or have they simply surrendered their power? How long, ladies and gentlemen, for how long will they lament, Cameroonians lament, mourn their dead, bury their heroes, whisper in fear, and then return to life as though nothing happened? How long? For how long will millions of Cameroonians allow one aging autocrat to define their destiny? Mr. Paul Biya ceased being a president long ago. He is now the chief architect of Cameroon's suffering, the primary obstacle to its progress, the single greatest threat to its stability. Removing him, rebelling against him is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of national duty and national healing. It is long overdue. The social contract has been broken long ago. The moral contract has been shattered too. The political contract was never honored. Cameroonians must decide whether they are citizens or spectators, whether they will continue waiting for salvation or seize their own freedom. Because the world will not save Cameroon. The African Union, the United Nations will not save Cameroon either. France will certainly not save you. Only Cameroonians can save Cameroon. The criminal in the presidency in Yaoundé, Paul Biya, will not stop. He will never stop. Criminals do not stop until they are stopped. Every Cameroonian knows the pattern. After one death comes another. After Wazizi came Tangem Thomas the pastor. After Tangem Thomas came Rodrigo. After Rodrigo, now we are talking about, and he said, Ekane. Who is next? Your brother? Maybe your daughter? Maybe your pastor? your journalist, maybe your neighbor, or maybe you. Cameroonian citizens must choose between continuing this slow national death or reclaiming its dignity. Cameroonians can rise, or they can keep lamenting. But lamentation has never toppled a dictator, ladies and gentlemen. Complaining has never restored freedom. Silence has never resurrected the dead. If Cameroonians allow Paul Biya to continue ruling, then they must accept the consequences. That is, more disappearances, more tortures, more deaths, more imprisonments, and more despair and suffering. As long as they tolerate criminality, they will be governed by criminals. Cameroon is being run by a criminal, and you find him on your screen. This is not a metaphor, it is a live, daily reality. The evidence lies in the graves of Samuel Wazizi, Bibi Ngota, Rodrigo Kufet, Pastor Tangam Thomas, and now Aniset Ekane. Their lives were taken, not by fate, but by the deliberate brutality of a regime that fears truth more than anything else. If Cameroonians want to be free, they must rise. If they refuse to rise, then they must accept that their chains are self-inflicted. No one will liberate them but themselves. After Aniset Ekane, who else must die before the nation wakes up? Who else must die? The answer to that question depends entirely on the courage of Cameroonians. Because until they stand up, until you Cameroonians stand up, the criminal in the presidency, Paul Biya, will continue ruling and killing your brothers, your sisters, your husbands, your children, and possibly also burning down your towns and villages. That is a monologue for you today, ladies and gentlemen.